I did not want to make this video, honestly, but I feel an obligation that I have to. There's this woman who, there's this girl who I am kind of acquaintances, kind of friends with. And she just went on an incredibly long posting spree, basically saying that the last guy I went on a date with, he flew me out to Miami on a private jet. He bought me all these things. He spent $20,000 in the club that we were at. He flew me back the next day. That is the only man that I will ever be with. I will never settle for less. She said, to prove it to you, well, and she said, last night I went on a date with this guy who took me to fucking Applebee's for dollar margaritas. Are you kidding me? That is pathetic. She was like, I felt embarrassed going out with this guy. I will never succumb to such low life activities again in my entire life. She said, this is my standard. She said, ladies, every single one of you, this is whatever standards you have set, you have to attach onto. If you go below that, you are disgracing yourself. And I was just sitting there, honestly hurting on the deep insides. And what made it worse is then she said, honestly, I didn't know how people were going to perceive this, but I can't believe how much love I got from you girls. She's like, I love you. She was like, she was like, girls, I know that none of you guys are going to lower your standards anymore. And that makes me feel good. And I almost threw up because this woman is going to be single for the rest of her life. And she's going to blame that on men. When in reality, it was her incredibly poor choices that led to this decision. And it is pathetic on a very low level. Let's just break down the science as to why this is. Well, first off, how many men are there in the world who are her standard? Because her standard is getting mega spoiled. She said this literally in the video. Getting mega spoiled, flying her out on private jets, doing all these things, spending $20,000 on their first date at the club, on top of the private jet. Probably one in less than a million. Then what about women who are men who are attractive enough for her? Because she also said that a man has to be even more attractive and tall and doing all these things. And then it breaks down to maybe 1 in 10 million people fit these descriptions. And then it comes down to, does one in these 10 million men who fit this description that every single woman in the world wants, an attractive, tall guy who is just lifting her off her feet, flying her out on a private jet, right? How many women in the world would want that? I would say every single woman on the entire earth would want that. Okay, so woman, what do you think you get to deserve that? What do you bring to the table? Bitch, I'm awesome. I do all these things. Really, dude? Do you deserve that? No. And when it comes down to it, if you were being honest with yourself, what do you provide that other women don't? Probably nothing. And so if that's your standard, and let's say you get lucky and one of those guys do bang you for a one night stand, and now it is deeply rooted inside your core that this is your new standard because, hey, guess what? This guy went for me. That means every single other guy in that position is going to have to go for me because this is my standard and I'm sticking to it. Okay, maybe they bang you, but are they going to want to settle down with you and have a long-term family when every single woman in the world is throwing themselves at him? No, because you're still a trashy bitch. And she's going to be 35 one day, and she's going to blame men for not putting up with her as to why she's single, or maybe a single mother. When the reality is, it is her poor choices in her 20s that are leading to this. But this is man's fault at the end of the day, because this was not a problem 50 years ago, because we had strong men. There was actually a lot of variety. And there's so many podcasts out there today who just blame women for everything in the world. And I think it's the opposite. When we had strong men who were leaders, women were happy to be succumbed by those types of men. They really wanted it because you had strong leaders, so many of them, that a lot of women were happy to be with a lot of these men. But there's so few strong men out there today that I'm they're not, most of them are not as extreme as this woman, but a lot of women are just saying, "Hey, I don't want to be with the pathetic scums of society," which a lot of men have become. And it is pathetic, honestly. I don't blame women for wanting better. I would actually blame the men in a lot of these situations, and I would put myself in that category in a lot of aspects as well. But getting back to a more structural issue as to what is this going to do to the demographics? Because there are a lot of women who slept with a super high quality guy. I mean, a lot of them, because those men are sleeping with 50 women a month because they have so much opportunity. So if these women all think their new standard is that Mr. Alpha Chad guy, none of them are going to want to settle for anything below that because it's hypergamy. That is basic hypergamy. Women want to be with the best possible suitor they can get with. And if they get with that top guy, they think that that's their new normal. And this chick is that she was so delusional about it that she knows that's her normal at a deep core level, that every single guy who's in that position is going to just be thrown off their feet when they see her. That's not the case though, because these guys literally have unlimited selection and they are going to sleep around a lot, unfortunately. That means there is an entire generation of women, or a very high population of women, who are not settling for anything less. And therefore, because of that, they are not getting married. Or if they are, it's into their 30s when they just end up with the cuck who is going to pay for a lot of their bills. And this is happening on mass scale. And I think that is going to get a lot worse over the next 10, 15 years because a lot of people are not settling down and having families and having kids. And uh, that is not a society that I want to live in, where the moral or the societal views are skewed towards sleeping around and not curating the future family in the nuclear family, because that, I think that is so important. It's so vitally important for society as a whole, and we're losing that aspect of life, and women are encouraging it a lot of the time because men are so weak that they can't step up. I'm not saying a man should step up and say, "Woman, get in the kitchen," and slap her, but he needs to be a leader and be strong enough to take care of a family. Not, I'm not saying just financially, because I know that is not as acceptable, or not as, it doesn't happen as often as it could because of uh, economic reasons. But we don't have men with values and a a moral compass anymore, and that is leading to a very slow societal collapse, which I don't like to see. I would not want to raise children in this generation where the values that are pushed on society are to sleep around, to ignore pairing bonds and supporting a family, and doing all these things that are so vital for humanity. And this woman is a perfect example of it. I don't want to pick on her, but I think she represents a lot of modern day women who, by the time they're 25, have had sex with 25, 30 people. And the only person that they will accept is the mega alpha Chad that they got lucky with one time. And then they don't have a long-term relationship, or if they do, they get divorced. I don't I don't like where this is going at all. And again, I need to harp down on this because the only thing that is going to change that trend is if society looks down upon that behavior again, because we should be looking down on that behavior. And if women looked at it the same way they did 20, 30 years ago, it would shut off instantly, because women, more than men, care about the opinion of other people to a very high degree. And I remember asking my late grandmother, saying, "Hey, Gramps," oh, she was like, "Oh yeah, after my first husband, she got married at like 18, and she said they got divorced because it wasn't working." She said, "I dated around a bit." I said, "Oh yeah, you were sleeping with all those, you were sleeping with a few guys," kind of joking around. She's like, "Oh, Josh, No way. That would never happen. And I was like, you were dating these guys and not sleeping with them? She's like, oh, you are not ever going to sleep with someone unless you're going to marry them. And she said that as a matter of fact. And that was how women thought, because they thought you were a whore if you slept with men that you were not going to marry. And that's the way she said it. She said, no, I was not a whore. Now, women sleep with guys on their first date. They sleep with them without going on a date. So if we had, and that is because there's no societal pressure for women if they sleep around, because women control sex. That's the end of the day. If the if women stopped having sex with men, then this problem would, or stopped having sex so easily with men, this would not be a problem because they control it 100%. Now we're growing into a society that is celebrating women by my grandmother's definition, not mine, but I'll take her words, being whores. And we're celebrating it. And my grandmother was deeply offended when I even thought of the idea or mentioned the idea of her sleeping with other people that she didn't marry. She married the next guy. She had two husbands. And she said that was too much. She said, oh, I shouldn't have done that. She said, I made a pact and we should have stayed together with my first husband, even though we got married too young. And so she still regretted that. She still felt like a whore because she had two husbands. Compare that to what women and men do today. It's the complete opposite. And I think a lot of that is because there was a strong societal pressure where if you did sleep around, you were a whore. Therefore, women didn't sleep around because they did not want the societal pressure on them. Whereas it's the complete opposite now. Women are encouraged. This woman was encouraging it big time. She's going to be a victim of hypergamy, unfortunately. And I don't mean to pick on her because it's a lot of Western women today. So I didn't want to talk about this, but day 21 of 1,000, you don't know what you'll get, I guess. Goodbye.